Professional photographers are notorious for preaching that the camera gear doesn't matter. It's what you do with it. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of tired of just hearing that and not seeing them shoot on anything other than the latest and greatest and most expensive stuff. So I want to know the answer. What if I got a really cheap DSLR, like whole kit, less than $100? Could I potentially make some good images on it? Let's find out. To eBay! Ha! Behold, the Canon EOS 30D. The 30D is a semi-professional digital SLR that was first introduced in 2006 as the 5D Mark I's younger crop sensor sibling. It has an APS-C CMOS sensor capable of shooting a whopping 8.2 megapixels. Now before you start laughing, 8.2 megapixels actually works out to 3,504 by 2,336 pixels. So that's more than enough to do prints even up to 8.5 by 11 inches if you had to. A lot of the times you really don't need a 45 megapixel camera. My highest resolution camera is 20 megapixels, I think, something like that. The EOS 30D is also capable of 5 frame per second continuous shooting, has a max ISO of 3200, offers auto exposure bracketing, and allows you to shoot raw images in Adobe RGB. But apart from the specs, the camera feels nice in the hand. It doesn't look like something that's as dated as it is. The build quality seems nice and the ergonomics are what you would expect from a good quality Canon camera. And the best thing about it that you really don't get on a mirrorless is just so satisfying. Now to stay true to the budget theme of this video, the lens that we're gonna be going with is this 18 to 55 EFS lens that I think I got with my first DSLR. It's pretty plasticky. There's nothing really special about it. I saw people bidding on it on eBay for like $10, so I mean, you could probably honestly get one of these for free. But yeah, so without further ado, let's put the lens on the camera and let's go put it to the test. All right, we are in Cape Perpetua in Oregon. Slater, can you scoot back? I know you're anxious. I'm sure this would be a really fine talking head. Jesus. Here we go. And I think the first decent shot is actually right here. Let's go. One thing that I am noticing about this camera is that the ISO is a little bit awkward to change. You have to like press this button and then you can adjust the ISO. And there's no automatic setting either, which isn't a big deal, but that's definitely something that's like a premium feature of like the newer cameras, I guess. But I don't know, it's working out just fine. All right, so we're back in the van. I just got some snacks, I'm refueled, I'm ready to go. We're coming down off the mountain and we're going to a spot that I've been wanting to photograph for quite some time now. To be honest, I'm a little bit nervous to photograph it with a $60 camera just because, you know, the stars have to align to get the shot that I'm trying to get. It's not something that happens all the time. I'm not really nervous, I'm just, you know, this is a test, so I want to see how it turns out. But I don't know, it's an experiment, so we'll find out how it goes. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. If it sucks, then it's gonna, well, you're gonna know. That's Slater's nose. Hold on, Slater, we're going. Okay guys, so we're at the Thor's Well parking lot right now. Thor's Well is kind of this collapsed lava cave that when the tide comes in, it fills with water and it looks like it's draining the ocean. It gives it this really, really cool effect. But right now the tide's not actually looking high enough to get that shot. Today was supposed to be the time at which the high tide coincides with the setting sun, but the sun is currently setting right now and we're still not getting any water pouring into that lava cave. As you can see, it's kind of swelling up with water down there, but it's not actually spilling over the top and giving us that draining look that we're going for. So until it actually does get to an adequate height, we're kind of just waiting. You can see the sun is just about to set, so our window for getting this shot is actually closing pretty rapidly. But we may be able to pull off a blue hour shot, which might be kind of pleasing as well. So we'll see, but bye-bye, sun. Okay, so as you can probably tell by that one video clip that I had of Thor's Well, the shoot did not necessarily go as planned. It was just too dark and too windy, and I didn't want to set up a tripod to shoot video because it was just kind of unpredictable and spooky and very dark. So needless to say, I did not get what I wanted, but I do think that I came away with something usable for the sake of this test. But before we get to the image of Thor's Well, I want to go through some of the raw files from the Cape Perpetua hike. So let's go take a look at that real quick. Let's switch over to Lightroom. And here's that first image that we shot when we got out of the van. And if we just toggle before and after, you can see that, I mean, I really didn't do too much to that. I just kind of brought the highlights down, the shadows up, and made it a little bit warmer. And I'm pleased with how that looks. I was actually kind of surprised. The colors on that bench look pretty decent. I didn't have to do too much there. Just really change the exposure a little bit. And this image right here, I find interesting because the leaves are really quite sharp. I think that lens, that little 18-55 kit lens that I got however long ago, is pretty sharp. It looks good. I mean, both camera and lens are impressing me right now. The LCD on the back of this camera is not so great. When I was shooting some of the images, I was worried that they might come out as they looked on the screen, because the screen looked kind of pixelated and the colors looked kind of off. but I was very relieved to find that when I put them in the computer, that the raw files and everything looked much better than it did on the back of the LCD. So I guess that the LCD technology has just kind of improved a lot since 16 years ago when this was released. And something else that has probably improved a lot is the auto white balance, because you can see in this image, this is after I changed the white balance, but beforehand in auto it looked very blue. I don't know what it thought it was doing, but I mean, it's not a big deal to manually set your white balance. So that's what I did going forward. Now, something that you should be aware of if you were going to get a 16-year-old camera is that naturally there are going to be some drawbacks. One of the biggest ones that I noticed was that you aren't as able to recover as much detail from your shadows or your highlights as you are in a modern camera's raw file. I always usually underexpose my digital images by about a stop just to protect this highlight detail up here. And then I'll boost it a stop, and then the highlights will still be okay and the shadows will be boosted. Now, when you're only adjusting by a stop or so, images like these are totally fine. Like this looks great. But if we go to an image that is a little bit more contrasty, like this one, right? So if we reset this image, you'll see that I exposed this one for the sky. And if we bring the shadows up like I would normally do, you'll see it doesn't look bad, but once you start to push it a bit, it does get really quite grainy, and that's not really quite usable. So that's not really great, but I mean, if you know that your camera has that limitation when you go into it, then you can work around that. Like for example, this camera has auto exposure bracketing. So you can do what I did, which I'll about to show you, where you can hand hold an auto exposure bracket, just 3 different exposures of the same image, and then Lightroom just makes it super easy to take that and you just go to photo merge, HDR, and it aligned the images, it merged them together as an HDR, and now I have this image that's got way more dynamic range than the one previous. I don't know, I don't think that's a really big deal. If I was starting out and that was this was all I had, I would be totally okay using that. That would not be that big of a drawback. Let's go take a look at that Thor's Well photo. So I actually did a blend between these 2 photos, this one of the sky and then this one for the foreground. It looks a little bit weird when I just pop it in there like that. And then I kind of just made some adjustments to blend them together and make them look a little bit more natural. Honestly, I mean, it's not what I was going for, and the conditions weren't ideal, and it's obviously you can see the camera's struggling a little bit here with the higher ISOs. I think I shot this ISO 640. It was a 1-second exposure, but I mean, for a 16-year-old camera, it's really pretty usable. I mean, if you have limitations to work with here, and that's a good thing. One of my favorite quotes by Tim Ferriss is, "Once you use a constraint to do more with less, only then can you do more with more." And I think that echoes extremely true in this instance where, you know, I like to think of myself as a pretty decent photographer, but shooting on this camera that wasn't as cushy and professional and high tech as the ones that I'm used to, it challenged me to do better and to find workarounds and just to be a better photographer. There's so much silent pressure out there to have like the latest and greatest camera and to get the next new thing and have it's all about the gear. All the videos online are all focused about the gear, and the gear is awesome. I love talking about gear, but you really don't need it. And I guess that's the whole moral of this video that I was trying to prove, is that for less than $100, you can make some really, really great images, and you can learn. The best camera in the world is not going to make you a good photographer, but having a camera and doing something cool with it is going to make you a better photographer. It's a difficult mindset to kind of get out of, to think that you need to buy this next thing to be better. And I've struggled with that myself. There was a time when I was shooting a bunch of like vlog stuff on YouTube, and I was wondering why my videos didn't look as good as like the pros who had like I had like a 1DX Mark II and had this really crazy insane gear, and I thought that maybe what I needed to step up my production was to get bigger, better gear. And I've fallen down that hole and I've spent a lot of money, and then I've realized that it doesn't really elevate your game at all. What you do with it and learning to solve problems and think outside of the box and be a better storyteller and to give value to people and to capture things that you care about and you're passionate about and just explore what it is to be a creator and to make things of your own. That's the juice. It's so powerful to just take the gear out of the equation and just create. And it's not like it's a forever thing. If you're considering getting into photography but you don't want to pay $2,000 for a new mirrorless body and then get lenses on top of that, drop $100. You'll figure out if you like photography or not. There's really no risk here. And for anybody out there considering getting into photography who might be watching this video, it's okay to suck in the beginning. It's okay to shoot on a $60 camera and be standing next to guys on $1,000 tripods with $4,000 camera bodies. It doesn't matter. It's the love of photography that should really unite us all. And each shutter click is just one step closer to you developing your style and being better. So there's so many things out there that can hold you back, and there's so much doubt and fear in the world, but don't let the gear be another one of those things that holds you back. Thanks for watching.